children, and also with books that are available for us. At this time, I will share with you the objectives of this webinar, Holistic Nurture of Children During the Quarantine. So we have two primary objectives. The first objective is we want to identify issues that children face during the quarantine. The quarantine, I mean, COVID-19 did not come with a manual for parents or for teachers. It left us, unaware of what are we going to do. And I believe that we have already known many issues concerning it, but there are other issues that we are not aware of. So this webinar hopes to provide suggestions for ministries to, with, and for children. We will unpack that later. What do we mean when we say those three prepositions on our ministries with children? So we can minister to children on their physical, cognitive, socio-emotional, and spiritual needs. We believe that a child cannot be divided like a pie or a pizza, no? Like this slice is physical, this slice is spiritual, this slice is mental or whatever. The child is a whole being. But we also are guided by the verse in Luke 2:52 about the growth and development of Jesus. Jesus grew in wisdom, in stature, and in favor with God and people. Children have various areas in their development, and we want to provide good exposure so that they will grow holistically. Ministering to children, we abide by the Lausanne Movement's Keto Call to Action on children. Ministering to children means that we turn toward them, offering what is needed to them and their families for healthy and abundant living. Ministry for children is standing at attention, placing children behind us to shield them from harm as we engage the abusers, exploiters, and systems that hurt them. So this is advocacy. What we are doing now is part of advocacy. And ministering with children means that we will stand side by side with them, welcoming them and empowering their engagement in ways that respect their changing and developing capacities. Okay, so that is how we minister with children. Like what Dr. Dick said a while ago, education should always begin at home. So we unpack what we're going to do this morning. Number one, what we know about issues children are facing during the pandemic will direct and shape our attitude towards them. Especially parents, children live with us. Our very own children are with us 24/7. And most of the time, they annoy us, no? Especially for those who are working. So what we know about the issues they are facing will direct and shape how we behave towards them. And then it is vital that our attitude towards children should be derived from biblical principles as well as current and previous research. And that is what our resource speakers will discuss with us today. So thank you for coming today, and I pray that all of us will be blessed as we minister to, for, and with children. I'm done, Baya.
Okay, our first speaker for today is Bradley Thompson. Bradley Thompson is from India, and he's the Senior Director at the World Vision's Global Child Sponsorship Team, New Zealand. He specializes in strengthening staff capacity and support. Bradley Thompson is a PhD candidate at APNTS AGST. He will be discussing on COVID-19 and its effects on our children. Over to you, Bradley Thompson.
Thank you very much, Wabini. It's so good to be with all of you on this webinar. As as introduced, I will talk about the broader aspects of COVID-19 and how it affects children. And my colleagues on the resource panel here will then go into details about responding in the various dimensions that was mentioned earlier. So we're all aware that COVID-19 has significantly impacted our world today. As of September 25th, over 32 million people have been infected worldwide, with over 979,000 deaths, according to the World Health Organization. Approximately 0.2% of these deaths are in children. Now, you would hear wide variations, of course, from country to country, but the average is around 2%, 0.2%. We may be already aware that while older persons are more affected by the disease, it is clear that there are secondary impacts on the lives of children, and these secondary impacts are quite significant, as we will see. Lockdowns, disruption in travel, disruption in social life, and its resulting effects impacts the health of children, their very survival, nutrition, education, of course, and livelihoods of parents are impacted. And this, again, creates a secondary impact on the lives of children everywhere. Let's look at COVID-19 infections in children. Now, in general, COVID-19 infections in children are not as severe as adults. Usually the symptoms are mild, and mortality, as I mentioned earlier, is quite low. Now, UNICEF estimates, based on data coming from about 42 countries, that around 8% of those infected are under 20 years of age. Now, children fare much better than adults, when they're infected. I'm sure you're already aware of this. Now, the reason is the immune systems in children are much better, and they also do not have underlying conditions, like heart or lung problems that often occur later in life for adults. And so that is why children fare much better even when they're infected. There's enough evidence to show that even when pregnant mothers who were infected with COVID give birth, the infants were not infected, showing that the virus really doesn't spread from mother to child during the birth process. This is important. So as I mentioned earlier, even though the direct health effects and infections are limited in children, we know that the pandemic severely affects, child survival, their growth and development because of the indirect effects on the lives of children. And we'll look at what those indirect effects are. One of the major impacts is on the health and nutrition of children. Now, globally, there's been significant progress made over the last few decades, in the area of health and nutrition. Our mortality, morbidity rates have actually changed and improved over the years. But there is evidence that these are continuing or have begun to decline, and it's going to erode years of progress. We know that the health systems are being overwhelmed because of the focus, the shift to COVID-19 prevention and treatment. We're already aware that basic access to health services have been impacted, and you will see that it'll continue to be impacted in the future. There's an estimate that around 1.2 million children additionally, and 56,700 mothers could die in 6 months because of disruption in basic interventions. This is a worst case scenario projection, but I think it's reasonable to expect these high numbers because of disruption in so many services, basic maternal and child health services. Another estimate is that over 26 million are at risk of being exposed to killer childhood diseases. We already know that there's a 30% reduction in routine immunization everywhere, especially in low-income contexts. And another estimated 5 million additional children could suffer from severe malnutrition. And another 100,000 children may die from malaria because of lack of access to basic services. We already know that health services across the world have been stretched, especially in low-income contexts. But now COVID is making it increasingly difficult. And of course, children with special needs are more likely to be impacted negatively. Let's look at education. In April 2020, COVID led to the closing of schools across 188 countries. Now, this impacted 90% of the world students. In July, there was an estimate that over 1.6 billion learners have been affected. Can you imagine the numbers? And this is about 91% of total learners worldwide. Now, it's not just the education that's been impacted. In many low-income countries, basic care of children that happens in schools. Children are served a meal a day in some countries. Now, all these things are being missed out. Now, though countries have responded, they've sort of shifted, the way classes are run, internet online courses have been started. Some countries have used TV, radio, means to communicate to continue education. But then it is already clear that access in poor settings is a significant challenge. About only 68% of countries were able to continue education activities during lockdown. And there is also emerging research to show that the pandemic will affect academic performance, especially of children in the higher classes, because of the closures and disruptions. Another major thing that we're seeing is violence against children. There's an estimation that 85 million children could be exposed to physical violence or emotional violence over 3 months because of the lockdowns and quarantines. So children living in difficult circumstances, the challenges have been sort of increased or scaled up, if you like. A study by World Vision in Bangladesh reported that violence against children increased by 42%. Again, there was also a look at the child protection helplines. Bangladesh is one example, but there are several that say, the helplines have received more calls, during periods of lockdowns and quarantines. In situations where adolescent girls and young women are already living in conditions of discrimination, the risk of violence increases significantly. Now, the challenge is that in contexts where already child protection systems are struggling, now because of the pandemic, it's getting overwhelmed. So that's a major issue that many countries and communities are facing. There are many reports, clearly showing us that children are becoming increasingly vulnerable to online sexual abuse, becoming increasingly vulnerable to trafficking. Young children, because they have more time now, they're at home, they're accessing more online games, social media, video chats. And with this, the risk of being exposed to exploitation increases, as I'm sure you're aware of. Studies show that children between 3 years and 13 years of age are at a higher risk of online exploitation. Europol did an analysis and said that if the pandemic results in a global recession, which I think we are at the brink of, then there is likely to be an increase in trafficking for labor and sexual exploitation. Let's look at the dimension of livelihoods and the impact on children. Now, COVID, as we're aware, has resulted in millions losing jobs. UNICEF estimates that 5 to 10% of GDP, even in industrialized nations, will be reduced. So you can imagine other nations. Inflation is a major issue already. Price rises, we're seeing that in many, many countries. So what happens as livelihoods collapse? the immediate impact is on children, because then, there is an instability in the home, and there's an increased risk again on children, and another UNFPA study said that children, we're likely to see an increase in child marriage. Um, and they predict we'll see about 13 million child marriages, in the next 2 years. Clearly, I'm sure all of us have faced this at some point, or we've observed this in people around us, or even children. Psychosocial emotional impacts are also clearly there. Psychologists have observed that children of all ages are facing stress because of COVID-19. The lockdowns have resulted in them not being able to play, not being able to meet their friends, not being able to go to school. And as adults, we are affected, and how much more than children. So there is a clear psychological burden that is being observed in children. Lack of outdoor activities, not able to meet friends, poor eating, sleeping habits cause disruption in their routine lifestyles, and clearly causing stress and boredom and frustration that can be expressed in ways that are not healthy. So the impact of lockdowns, very clearly there is an increase, as I mentioned, domestic violence, child abuse. So this also affects their health, mental health. Children quarantined in institutions or hospitals suffer more because imagine younger children being separated from their parents and having to be alone, quarantined. They're confused, not knowing what's going on. So there's a big risk there. And again, we see the risks are increased in populations that are extremely vulnerable. Migrant, families, internally displaced children, children living in orphanages, face a greater issue. So we need to clearly, urgently, as a community of faith, address immediate health, nutrition, and other physical needs of children. We clearly need to improve access to education and provide safe online learning where needed. We need to protect children from violence and improve access to protection services. Now, what will this mean in the context of a church? What will this mean in the context of a community? What will this mean in the context of a school? We'll clearly need to provide those avenues where children can reach out if they're faced with violence. So how can we strengthen existing services as well? It's an important thing to think about and address. Clearly, there is a need to address the psychosocial and emotional needs of the children as well, providing them alternate means of expressing themselves, helping them to connect with others, even if it's on a phone or online, being able to see others and connect others, even if it's connect with others in a safe way, even if it's virtual. And lastly, of course, there is a need to strengthen the spiritual nature of children in the home, in our communities. How can we ensure that children, their needs are addressed in a way that will build them up in this time of stress, in this time of my fellow resource panelists, and I believe they will take us through some of these things that I've been talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bradley Thompson. Our next speaker is Dr. Evelyn Pajaron. Dr. Evelyn Pajaron is from the Philippines, based in Davao City. She's an author, life coach, Family Life Philippines, a ministry of Campus Crusade for Christ. Dr. Evelyn Pajaron is a graduate of APNTS AGST, and she will be discussing on physical nurture of children during quarantine. Over to you, Dr. Evelyn Pajaron.
Good morning. It's good to know and reassuring to know that children fare better with regards to COVID-19. And since many of the participants may be parents or working with children, we still want to ensure the safety and physical nurture of our children and those that we work with. So I'll be sharing practical things we can apply, sourced from research, as well as from actual things my children do with our grandkids. And mothers I have been mentoring online with their children because they're the ones who are experiencing, being locked down. So this morning, in the midst of this pandemic, it's a must that parents, first of all, strengthen the children's immune system, even though they fare better. But still, we need to strengthen their immune system. And how do we do that? First, by serving nutritious food and enough water. The Philippines Food and Research Nutrition Institute came up with age-defined nutritional guidelines based on the eating pattern, lifestyle, and health status of Filipinos. They basically use the same the same guidelines for different age groups, but varying the amount of servings depending on the age. If you notice at the base is water, of our food guide, water, and lots of it, especially because of our hot tropical climate. Different countries have their food guide, like this one for European country. So wherever you are from, use your country's recommended food guide as your guide for meals. There's no single food that contains all the nutrients that our body needs. So eating a variety of food that contains, ensures that daily nutritional needs are met. Vegetables and fruits are the main sources of vitamins, minerals, and fiber to regulate the body processes. Milk products, and other calcium-rich foods such as fish and shellfish are needed for stronger bones and teeth. Fish, lean meat, protein, poultry, egg, dried beans, or nuts are needed for growth and repair of body tissues. So children, especially because they are still in their growing stage, need all the nutritious, various food, nutrients that they need for their growing years. In all the dietary guidelines, drinking water is a must. The reason being that our body, including our internal organs, are made up largely of water that need to be replenished on a daily basis. Different people have different percentages of their bodies made up of water. Babies have the most water in their body, being born at about 78%. By 1 year of age, that amount drops to about 65% and remains throughout their growing years. In adult women, since we have more fat tissues which do not hold water as lean tissue, we have about 55% of our bodies made of water, while adult men have 60%. So percentage-wise, babies and kids have more water in their bodies than adults, and women have less water than men. So what does water do for us? Water is needed by the brain to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters. Water regulates body temperature, like sweating and respiration. Water acts as a shock absorber for brain and spinal cord. Water converts the food that we eat to components needed for survival and digestion. It helps deliver oxygen all over the body. It lubricates our joints, especially for those who are aging. Water allows our body cells to grow, reproduce, and survive. It keeps mucosal membranes moist. It flushes body waste, mainly in urine. Our kidneys, which play a key role in regulating fluid balance, function more efficiently in the presence of an abundant water supply. If the kidneys don't get enough water, thus producing a more concentrated urine, it works harder and there is more wear on their tissues. For example, when the diet contains excessive amounts of salt or toxic substances that need to be eliminated and you don't drink lots of water to flush this out, your kidneys are under stress. Consequently, drinking enough water helps protect this vital organ. Children throughout their growing years lose more water from their skin at rest and under normal conditions compared to adults. So even if they're not doing anything, they're at rest, they are losing water from their skin. In part, they cannot sense the water loss through their skin, so they do not feel the urge to drink water. But since a large part of their body is water, they have higher water requirements per unit of body weight compared to adults. All the more when they're active. They're the active kind or engaged in active sports. It's important that they hydrate before, during, and after, as advised by the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Nutrition and Council on Sports Medicine and Fitness. The importance of adequate hydration is clear. Staying well hydrated by maintaining proper water balance within the body is an important issue to support growth and health of our children. Check these references for values for total water intake from food and fluid per age group, according to hydrationhealth.com for your children's needs. So comparatively, children need to drink a lot of water because they need to replenish the water content of their body. Another important way to strengthen the immune system is by getting enough sleep. This was addressed partially by Bradley. The National Sleep Foundation, as a result of multiple rounds of consensus voting after a comprehensive review of published scientific studies on sleep and health, gave the following recommendations. Needed hours of sleep for the body so that it will heal and repair. You see, they really need to have lots of sleep. And since school has started, as mentioned by Bradley, where children learn through a screen media, it is important to regulate the children's screen use, especially before bedtime. A study of 11,000 children in the US shows that greater screen media use like TV, video game use, they're associated with decreased sleep duration, increased later sleep, and greater excessive sleepiness, insomnia, and overall sleep disturbance. So use of these screen medias were also associated with clinically relevant sleep problems. So it's highly recommended that for children, you have winding down time, wean them from gadgets 2 hours or more before their bedtime. A third way to strengthen the immune system is the use of supplements and exposure to sunshine for a daily dose of vitamin D. There are children who are picky eaters or they eat little, so children may not get all the nutrients they need from food. So it's best to talk to a pediatrician about this. If supplements is needed, buy a multivitamin that does not exceed the 100% daily value of most of the vitamins for your child's age group, especially vitamins A, E, and K. Those should not exceed. Exceptions are vitamin C and other water-soluble vitamins that can get washed out, and vitamin D, which is fat-soluble and can be gotten also from sunshine. You may check this website for the daily nutritional goals of nutrients and vitamins for age sex groups based on dietary reference intakes and recommendations to serve as your guide. But better yet, consult your pediatrician to recommend the right vitamin dosage according to your child's age and weight. This pickyeatersblog.com has good recommendations on what vitamins are healthy without the many added preservatives, dyes, and sugar commonly found in a number of children's vitamins. So these vitamins are usually available in the US and Europe. But for us in the Philippines or Asia, I found this site, the one at the bottom, iHerb, that one can order vitamins from at local prices. Aside from strengthening the children's immune system, we also need to structure activities into their daily routine for their physical development. Of course, the first one is exercise, regular exercise. Since they are not allowed to play freely outside, but children are usually active, so they might be limited because of quarantine. It's good to exercise with them. So we too get into the habit, especially with work from home. We need to have a regular exercise. Get children to play games that require them to be active. Better yet, if you have a second floor, have games that will require them to go up and down the stairs, and also for you. Dr. Olumbe will share the socio-emotional benefit of playing with your children. Another way is to create safe places for the children to be active on their own. Like one father I know made this improvised swing. Or, sorry. It may just be a musical mat. This my granddaughter is only 15 months, having fun by herself. They need to spend their energy in active play, like this one, for better sleep at night. Another way to help children build their fine motor skills as well as life skills is by building into their routine age-appropriate chores. It's best to start them young, like fixing their bed upon waking up until they master it and it becomes a habit. My daughter has done well in keeping my grandkids do their chores regularly. Once they get into the habit of helping and doing something that they're expected to do or it's part of their routine, sometimes you may get surprised when they do things on their own without being asked. Like this girl, the mother shared, you know, she did not ask this girl, but she waters the plants, she hang the clothes, you know, out for hanging, even without being asked or told. One parent I know trained their two girls, aged 4 and 6, early on. The parents write the step-by-step recipe for the children to follow, and the children cook by themselves, individually or together. If you notice the picture on the right, they are presenting dishes that they themselves have cooked. They look like gourmet dishes, but they were the ones who cooked it following the procedure written out by their parents. You see, children could just surprise you with what they can do if we take the time to train them. Another way to build their fine motor skills is in teaching or encouraging them to learn to play musical instruments like the ukulele or guitar or the kalimba, here being played by my granddaughter. Oh, sorry. So you see, playing musical instruments like this, it improves the motor skills of our children. They relate to the ability to move and synchronize between different muscles and bones of the body, like the hands and fingers, to accomplish routine and intricate tasks like handwriting and drawing. When the children have these varied activities into their daily lives, especially so when they're in quarantine, there's no time for them to be bored. So in summary, we need to strengthen their immune system by giving them nutritious food and plenty of water, enough sleep, ensuring that they get enough sleep, sunshine and supplements. We structure into their daily routine exercise, active games, safe activity places within the home, and appropriate chores, as well as learning musical instruments. God bless you and keep your family safe.
Thank you, Dr. Evelyn Pajaron. Our next speaker is Dr. Roseline Olumbe. Dr. Roseline Olumbe is from Kenya. She's a lecturer and coordinator at the Institute of Child Development, Daystar University. She also serves in her local church in the Sunday school ministry. Dr. Roseline Olumbe is a graduate of APNTS AGST, and she will talk about socio-emotional nurture of children during quarantine. Over to you, Dr. Roseline Olumbe.
Thank you and good morning. Just allow me to share. So I'll be sharing with us and welcome, good morning to all of you and welcome. I'll be sharing with us about the socio-emotional nurture of children during the quarantine. And as we all know, and as Bradley has also mentioned, what we know is that COVID-19 has had an impact on children and in terms of especially their socialization and interaction. And as we'll be looking through, we do know that interaction is very critical to the development of children. And so what are we going to do as caregivers to be able to support our children to develop well socio-emotionally? And so I'll be taking us through a few things, and first just to understand the needs of children in this context of COVID, but what are their socio-emotional needs, and how has COVID, and Bradley has mentioned that a little bit, how has COVID affected socio-emotional well-being of children, and then what interventions can we do as parents or caregivers, and then just some parenting tips around this time, and then we conclude. Now, we are told socio-emotional development has to do with the ways children start to understand who they are and what they are feeling and what to expect when interacting with others. It has to do with ways children experience and manage, express their emotions. Because we know children have emotions and they need to express this, and this we see it as they develop and try to express it to us. But it also has to do with the way children form and manage their relationships so that form and sustain positive relationships so that we see ways in which they develop and progress. It has also to do with the ways children explore and engage with the environment. And so during this quarantine, we know because of the lockdowns, children have had to stay indoors, and that means therefore their interaction and their engagement with the environment has reduced. And how do we help them be able to cope? Now, there are several needs or socio-emotional needs for children that we need to be able to respond to. First, children need to be safe and secure. Now, it's a socio-emotional need because when they are feeling insecurity, it increases their negativity and not be able to interact with others well. So we need to be able to provide environments where they are safe, and that enhances their development safely. Children have a need to be loved and to have a sense of worth. And we know that actually when children grow up feeling rejected and not loved, this will be manifested more during their adolescent years when they start feeling, especially at the stage when they have emotional identity, and when they struggle to get their identity, then they feel unworthy, they have low self-esteem. So we need to provide that for them. They have a need to receive attention and to be understood. And sometimes it's difficult, especially with this quarantine, to understand children as they go up and down in their emotions. How do we help them to be able to experience that? They have a need to have a sense of control and predictability. But what has quarantine done? It has made life very unpredictable. When will schools reopen? When will we be able to play with others and interact more? When will we have engaging games? It's very unpredictable, and that causes instability to children. They have a need to recognize and be able to handle strong feelings. And of course, with this quarantine, there are enough strong feelings that are emerging in children that we have to respond to. They also have a need to have a sense of power and feel independent. And so the independence in children is very helpful, but with the lockdown, what we know again, that independence is reduced, especially with the lockdown in the houses and not being able to go out, visit their friends, especially for teenagers. They have a need to be engaged in stimulating pursuits. And I think Dr. Pajaron has told us about the engagement in physical activities and how it enhances the development of children. And then finally, a need to enjoy relationships and have a sense of belonging. And this is very critical for them for their development. Now, as already mentioned by Bradley, how has COVID-19 affected children? In many ways, and maybe what we could see is stress. And so what we see has happened to some of our children is the stressors, and you see my red buttons, have increased, and that means on the seesaw, it is the heavier burden for them. And so maybe they're feeling stressful, and some of the emotions they may be expressing is worry, uncertainty, anxiety, sadness, overwhelmed, confused, and we have to be able to help them cope within that context. However, what can we do as caregivers to be able to help children cope well socio-emotionally? And one of the things we can do to increase their resilience and therefore balance so that the resilience is stronger than the stressors, we have to provide warm and supportive parenting. And so be warm and be there for the child, walk with them and support them. We need to help our children develop coping skills. And we know a coping child will be able then to adapt in the environment and be able to be resilient and be able to move on and do things. And therefore some life skills, assertiveness is very key to help children. Management skills, self-regulation are very key in helping children cope, especially at this time when the emotions are very unstable. They have to learn how to cope. We can also provide positive experience. What science tells us, when children are exposed to negative experiences, it has a lifetime impact. And it's Freud who said early negative experiences in early years have lifetime impact on the child. How are we going to provide a positive experience that will enhance their development, especially even in this quarantine context? And then as families, as adults, as parents, we need to provide a stable environment. We know COVID has destabilized homes. It has affected livelihoods, it has affected lifestyles, and it has affected our own lives. But how will we be able to provide that stability for children, even with reduced income? I know of my own country, Kenya, where some people have lost their jobs, and I think this affects maybe across the globe. People have gone for pay reduction. How do we try and work within the little that we are having and provide stability? My colleague Bradley talked about the fact that violence has increased in homes. How do you provide stability to be able to help children have better experiences? And so 3 critical interventions that we can provide for children is to listen, to comfort, and to reassure. And so as caregivers or parents, we need to listen and allow children to express. They will say many things. They will ask many questions. We have to be there and be able to listen to them and know what they are feeling and what they are expecting. But secondly, comfort. How can we practically comfort children? For the younger children, we can use stories. And so I come from a country where stories are very good. And so just keep telling stories about your growth life, your development. We talk about stories about animals and how they come in and how they did something. So give them stories. Do songs, and that would help them. Have games together. It will help to calm children and help them to progress. Reassure children. And I think at this time when children are feeling very insecure, they don't know about the future and what will happen. It is our role as adults to let children know that I am there. I will support you. I will protect you. And this will help them know, though things are unpredictable, my father, my mother, my caregiver is available to help, to support me. And so I have 8 tips that we can use as we work through supporting children and helping them in this quarantine. And very critical for us is quality time. People talk about quality time and quantity time. But what I want to talk today is about quality time. We may be busy and having so many things to do. How will we create and make it very quality, the little time that we have with them? First, set aside time for each child. Now, I don't know if you are like some of our African countries where we would have 10 children, but of course I know with industrialization, we now have 3 or 2, whether you have 10, try and squeeze within your time. You'll have time for all of them, but at least time for each child. Ask what they would like to do so that you can engage them in that particular moment. Now we've talked about gadgets being the order of the day today. I think we need to have that moment when all gadgets are off and people are talking to each other, because even talking to each other enhances their brain development. And then give your child full attention. We know what it feels to get undivided attention, so let's give them full attention. Secondly is provide a structure, and Dr. Evelyn Pajaron has already mentioned this, and a structure helps children to have a routine. What I know is that COVID-19, sort of with the closure of schools and other activities, that routine was somehow lost. But within our homes, we have to create a structure. When they wake up, there's a predictable, and predictability of the day helps children stabilize and calm down. So have a consistent routine. Of course, be flexible a little bit, but it has to be very consistent and they know what to expect. Teach them about safety, because they'll be wanting to go and play outside, interact with others, visit people. Tell them the risks that are likely to be exposed to, that at least it is very clear. So you're integrating teaching within your day. And then model the behavior you want to. So if you're telling them not to visit and you're visiting, it confuses children. And so we have to help them and model that specific behavior. Thirdly is organized play. Now, science tells us that play is the language through which children communicate. How they jump, how they sit, and how they interact tells us a lot. Is this child okay or not? So within our days, we have to structure in time to play with our own children. And as we play with them, observe them. Are they playing well? Are they rough? Are they aggressive? Because aggression in the play will be telling us that actually something is wrong. And you use that moment to talk to them. So what we know that as parents, or what play will do, it helps children to recapture and to a sense of control, a sense of power, safety, trust, and hope. And this was by Kilborn in 2007, so that we can be able to give them that reassurance. Fourthly, encourage children by keeping it positive. Let them have positive thinking, positive attitude. Right now, there's a lot of negativity, and especially I think of my country, Kenya, where they are feeling they're going to repeat their classes when they go back to school. And so why should I continue having online classes? They're very negative about their life and how things, we have had cases of suicide. Yesterday we had a case we're trying to deal, a girl who wants to commit suicide, and there are many others. Let's help them to keep it positive. And so say the behavior you want to see in the child. Praise them when they behave the way you are expecting. Listen to their needs, and then be realistic in what you are expecting from them. So are we giving them too unrealistic comments that will not be helpful for them? Be positive. And then keep children occupied. And I think this has also been mentioned a bit. Let them have activities they are doing in that day. We know that idleness is the devil's workshop. So can we have activities that they'll be able to engage in, and also exercises, which can be done in the house, or if it is outside, with clear social distancing being maintained. Number 6, keep calm and manage stress. What we know that sometimes our own emotional instability would have an impact on our children. What are some of the things that we can do to ensure that our children are safe? So plan your day, declog your mind, avoid negative news, pray, and take time to rest. And so give children direction and be able to redirect their behavior so that they are not engaging in negative things. Check it out and intervene very early enough. And number 8, keep communication. Communication is very key. Talk to your children, interact with them, and let them know that, yes, somebody wants to engage with me. What about with their family members, the extended family? They can call them, they can chat with them, and then we can, because some of them are now not able to talk to their parents or interact with them. So let us keep the open doors of communication so that we are talking with them and interacting with them. And so as I conclude, I think when you talk about the socio-emotional nurture, I think what children will be telling us is, you have been my best friend, then in itself a tremendous thing. And so they'll appreciate that and enjoy and develop effectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Roseline, for presenting this topic. And now we will have 5-minute short break. Use this break to stretch your body and go to CR. And we will back at 10:05. Sorry, 10. We will back at 10:03. We'll back at 10:03. Please use these 5 minutes for break. Thank you.
For 36 years, Asia-Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary has been preparing men and women in teaching, preaching, media, pastoral, and other forms of ministry for competence and excellence for Christ-like leadership. APNTS was founded in 1983 as the Regional Center for Graduate Ministerial Education on the Asia-Pacific region. Located in Metro Manila, Philippines, where the gospel is spreading rapidly. APNTS is committed to a holistic faith community where diversity of cultures is celebrated, gender equality in leadership, and welcomes students from a variety of denominational backgrounds and affiliations. APNTS offers degree programs that will prepare you for the ministry locally and globally. Join us in building bridges for Christ. Choose APNTS today.
APNTS taught me to be a Christian communicator.
APNTS taught me to be selfless.
Hello, APNTS. You taught me how to serve the Lord effectively. I love APNTS. May God bless you always.
APNTS taught me to be a better Christian educator.
APNTS taught me to have faith in God.
APNTS taught me to do all the good that I can and live a holy life to be pleasing to the eyes of God.
APNTS taught me to be a critical thinker.
APNTS taught me to be kind.
APNTS taught me confidence.
APNTS taught me to be more faithful.
APNTS taught me how to grow in favor with God and man.
APNTS taught me to live with people from different nations, tribes, and tongues.
APNTS taught me what servant leadership is all about.
APNTS taught me Hesed, royal love.
APNTS taught me the importance of community.
APNTS taught me to be awesome.
APNTS taught me about servanthood.
APNTS taught me to be the light for Christ for all the nations.
APNTS taught me to be limitless. Don't forget to wear your mask.
Welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is Asin. Asin is from Korea. She is a missionary in the Philippines with the Grace and Peace Church. As part of her mission, she's involved in Sunday school teachers training ministry, school evangelism, jail ministry, sponsorship programs, and preschool. Asin is a PhD student at APNTS AGST, and she will talk about spiritual nurture of children during quarantine. Over to you, Asin.
Thank you very much, Ubeni. I'm Missionary Asin, and then I want to share my screen. Today, I want to talk about the spiritual nurture during quarantine. And then, because I hope nobody was positive for the COVID-19, but we could not understand fully, but my family, except my first daughter, were positive for COVID-19 in April. And then but at the time, all of us were in panic, but after a few days later, we found the peace in God and we realized the great God's power in life, why we experience it. That is what I want to share today. So today I want to share about the situation-specific instruction and scaffolds about the socio-cultural theory. Based on these two theories, I want to share about the resilience during the pandemic. And then based on these three sharing, I developed the 4 C's for spiritual nurture. So first of all, situation-specific instruction is about, like, simply I want to say that learning material would be the specific situation. So whatever it is, every child have a specific situation to learn. And the learning method in the situation-specific instruction is the instruction for the interpretation of life. So about the specific situation, if there is an instruction how to interpret that specific situation, that is how children learn about the specific situation. So imagine that if a child has an instructor or living role model who can guide them to think God's bigger plan, even in the suffering, they will learn the better things about abstract meaning of the Bible. For example, shalom in any situation, the peace in any situation, they will learn. And then the faith, those also abstract concept, but through instructor and living role model, they also can understand the meaning of the faith, and they can develop their faith also. So in my case, I just want to share my experience. I was in a hospital, and then my eldest kid was on quarantine facility, and then she called me at night, and during daytime she was okay, but at night she called me, and then she expressed the scare. So I affirmed her that God is with you, and then I prayed for her, and then I advised her not to cry alone. If she want to cry, she can call me anytime. And then, you know, when I do like this, she cried 1 hour for 2 nights, but not on the third day. And then at that time, she also experienced God was with her. And then second experience is like that. I discharged first, then my second kid. That's why my second kid feel nervous and fear. And then she called me by video call, and then, Mom, I can discharge tomorrow, right? God will let me go out, right? Please pray for me a lot, okay? And then I told her, okay, I will. I'm not sure of your discharge, but let's pray to God, because only God can control it. And then I prayed to the Lord like this: Lord, it is a perfect timing that she can experience how God answered to our prayer. Let her see how you work. Let her discharge tomorrow by faith. I prayed like this, and then amazingly, she discharged the next day after 2 tests. So, and the second thing is about the scaffolds. It is about, from the socio-cultural theory about the child development. And then the child in the social context can learn the social concept and then socially acceptable action through the instruction. And then through the scaffold, they can enhance their competence. For example, like this scaffold, the human cannot go up without the scaffold, right? But if there is a scaffold, they can do more things they can do. And then look at this taekwondo player's picture. The man in the green circle, you can see him. He needed the practice. He needed the training, how to jump high, more than humans can do. But imagine if the child has no person here in the red circle who can support them to jump up. They will not can do it. And then I want to say the people on like the pyramid in the yellow line, I think it is symbolized the community. So if the child has no community to provide them to express, demonstrate their competency, how can they do? So for me, these men and these pyramid humans are scaffold for the child. I also apply it in the parenting. So for the spiritual nurture, children can understand more about the spirituality and develop their faith through the parental scaffolds equals faith practice like praying, reading Bible, and acting faith. What I want to emphasize is acting faith. So by words, they express their faith, and by action, they also express their faith. So through the faith practice with their parents, children can learn more about the faith and the spirituality. It will help their spiritual nurture. So situation-specific instruction and then the scaffolds help me thinking about orientation, disorientation, reorientation. I simply say orientation is ups in our lives. When we are happy, you imagine the Christmas or your birthday, okay? That is the moment of your ups, full of joy. But because of the pandemic, most of people feeling like that downs, sorrow, disappointment, and the discouragement. It is a period of the disorientation. What I want to emphasize is that it is a circle to be another reorientation. So our life is a cycle. Sometimes we are ups, we have downs, but we also re-ups, restore the joy. So if the children feeling like they are downs, the disorientation, if parents feeling they are in the downs, all of them have to remember this is not the end of their life story. They will have another reorientation period by God. So until that moment, what they have to do is be faithful. So we want to thinking about how to be resilient in suffering. I recommend you to search the Wisdom in the Midst of a Trial, Dr. Charlie Stanley. Dr. Charlie Stanley exalted Christians to choose the way benefiting from difficulties, not the path to escape from them. So when we're thinking about when we have the sufferings, rather than complaining to God, why it happened to me? Why only to me? Lord, if you are living God, why you put me in this difficult situation? Rather than complaining like that, we can benefit from the difficulties. So COVID-19, no one wants to be positive for the COVID-19, but because of that, we learn God's peace. And we also learn the value of the family. And we also experience God's healing power. So that is how we can be resilient in the suffering. I trust many of you know the song Waymaker also. That really is very powerful. When I can see you are still working, right? And then you are a promise keeper. So through those songs, we can affirm our faith and can be resilient in the suffering. So I hope the parents also can share this, how to be resilient in suffering, so that the children can be nurtured spiritually during in quarantine. So when I'm thinking about the children, I ultimately think about my two kids, but I also thinking about my children at the church. There are my Sunday school students and teachers. And then I'm thinking about the children to be resilient spiritually, to think about God's bigger picture toward them, rather than make them focus on their suffering now. Let them think about God's bigger picture through their suffering. So I recommend the 4 C's to raise the spiritually resilient child during the quarantine. Why resilience is important? Because we cannot control the environment, especially the pandemic. We could not control it. And then as Dr. Roseline shared, we need to increase the to reduce the stressor, we have to increase the resiliency of the children. So for that, I recommended 4 C's. 1 is consistency, 2nd is completeness, 3rd is creativity, and 4, children inclusive conversation. So first of all, first C is a consistency. Continually, not once, pray and read the Bible with the children. Here, emphasis is continually, not only January to December, continually pray and read the Bible with the children. Children really want to pray with the parents. Children want to read the Bible with the parents. It's easy to say, to tell the children, read the Bible, but they will not work. So I recommend you read the Bible with the children. Pray about something with the children. And then it is a modeling, it is to demonstrate the parents' dependence on God. Parents also dependent on God. There will be the modeling for the children to learn what they need to do. And then second, C is the completeness. It is reading book by book. I do not want us to be the grasshopper. Sometimes we read the Genesis and Exodus, and when we meet the Deuteronomy or Numbers, we jump to the Matthew and Mark. Rather than we do that like that, let's read the Bible book by book. So that is for the faith in head. But sometimes the children are really having hard time to understand the Bible contents. That's why parents can visualize the content of the Bible, chapter by chapter. Or if there are many reasons named, we can use the map to visualize their understanding. So this is for the faith in head. And the second is the faith in action. It means the application. After they read the Bible, what application they can do in their real life. So that is faith in head and faith in action. And the third one is the creativity. So flexibility and openness to read and pray together. It included the listening. Parents, please be careful not to be the sermon speaker during Bible reading. Read together, and then as much you talk, let your child also talk. And then let them express their thought by pictures, drawing, or some music. So parents need to be flexible and open to let the children be involved. And then last one is children inclusive conversation. Children are Christians too, not the members' children. So what we can do is that let's include them in our faith conversation. So for example, we can include them in the worship for the prayer or opening prayer or special numbers or closing prayer. And then now in our Grace and Peace Church, we are doing relay fasting prayer for 20 days. So for that, I also included the children to join in. And then also we included the children in our church group chat. So let them hear what others talk, and then let them see what is going on in the church, in the world, so that children can be included in our conversation. And then for that purpose, I asked some question to the youth. Do you think such ministry are possible in the pandemic? Can we do the ministry in the pandemic? And then they answered like the following. And they also say, what do you learn from chapter 12? And the one of you is telling them, God is moving in our life. That's why we never stop praying and praising God. And then we also shared to increase their resilience, like these questions, and that they answered, and then it shows their resilience. So what I want to emphasize here is that let children hear, think, and speak and act so that they can learn how to depend on God by the guidance of the parents and then church ministers, pastors. This is what I think how to nurture the resilience of our children spiritually. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asen. Now over to you, over to Dr. Natz, the program director.
Yes, next speaker is Dr. Nativity of a cognitive psychological.
Sorry, I was disconnected.
Go ahead, Dr. Natz. It's your time.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, resource speakers, Bradley, Dr. Evelyn, Dr. Roseline, and Ason. And thank you, Obi, for facilitating. So far we have learned how to do, ministry, or how we serve the children in our midst by providing avenues for them to develop, even in this quarantine, their physical needs, socio-emotional needs, spiritual needs, and what's the other one? Cognitive. That is what we will talk about now. During this quarantine, it's like one of the only ways we can communicate is through technology, right? Okay, can you do a thumbs up if that's true in your home, in your context? And I believe our resource speakers have already given us help on how to do that. But very quickly, I will share with you proper ways to, okay, let me share my screen. Proper ways to raise up children in this advanced technological world, okay? I will just go through this very quickly because all of the PowerPoint presentations will be disseminated to all of you today, okay? So it will be in PDF form. And this webinar is also recorded, so if you want to listen again, you can always do that. Very quickly, I will share with you the advantages of technology, but many of us know that already. But some of us are not aware of the disadvantages of technology. And then what are the ways in which we can raise up our children in this advanced technological world? Many of us have many addictions, no? Some of the addictions, according to Brad Huddleston, by the way, we have this book in the library, Digital Cocaine, A Journey Toward Eye Balance. So according to Huddleston, the person needs more and more of a substance or behavior to keep him or her going. So that is the definition of addiction. So if the person does not get more of the substance or behavior, he or she becomes irritable and miserable. So if our children are already becoming like that, so if you take away the cell phone, the iPad, or whatever, if the child becomes miserable, then that is one of the signs that our children are more or less addicted. My son calls it addicted. So my son always sees me on the laptop because that's where I work. He will always say, "Mama, you're already addicted to your laptop." No? But there is, I think many teenagers are on compulsive gaming. So they have severe withdrawal symptoms, especially in game addicts. They become angry, violent, or depressed. Okay, so if parents take away the computer, their child sits in the corner and cries, refuses to eat, sleep, or do anything. So we hope that this will not happen to our own children. I think our resource speakers have already given us information on this. So example, internet addiction, cell phone addiction, Facebook addiction, YouTube addiction. So we see a meme on Facebook. It says, "If you see my mom on Facebook, please remind her I'm still in the sink." No? So sa Bisaya pa, nasunog na ang pinirito. Meaning, the fried fish is already burned because the mother or the father are so busy interacting on social media. Paul has this in 1 Corinthians 6:12. "I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything." We hope that we can apply that verse not just to our children, but also to us. In one way or another, Dr. Evelyn and the rest of the resource speakers have already mentioned this. This is Filipino kids, okay? Especially these days because most of our education is happening online, okay? So this is a study by Cartoon Network, okay? I will not discuss this now because you will receive the PDF on this. This is from Dr. Evelyn's comprehensive exam paper. The increasing use of mobile communication, excuse me, sophisticated gadgets and apps create major risks on children. I think most of us know that. Okay, we have advantages, social world of teenagers is extended, technical skills, media and literary skills, self-directed, peer-based. So those are the advantages of knowing the use of technology. We can see this kind of environment now, and then we keep families connected. We have virtual family get-together, and all these things. These are some of the advantages of technology, but there are disadvantages of using technology. The relationship of parents and children, number one, for many of us parents, technology is the perfect babysitter. Okay, so parents, if you agree to this, put a thumbs up. We can work 5 hours straight. I can see Ferdinand putting a thumbs up. Parents can relax. Digital screens can engage their kids anytime and anywhere. Parents can work better when their kids are busy with gadgets. But as the Global Alliance said for Holistic Child Development, our children are being discipled by the world, positive and negative. So we as parents, as caregivers, Sunday school teachers, pastors, we have the opportunity to help children have a healthy concept on theological skills. So of course, there's evil on online presence. Okay, pedophiles are very active, especially these days. I think we have seen on Facebook, drop your daughter picture, drop your whatever picture. So we are giving our pictures to pedophiles out there, okay? I think you are aware of this. This is a project done by Therdism, a Netherlands-based children's rights NGO. You can Google this in the internet. They created a virtual girl called Sweetie. She is a Filipina, and they were able to catch predators, okay, online because of this. So they have Sweetie 2.0. So please Google on that so that you will be updated on that project of an NGO. Okay, so these are some information from UNICEF, okay? Cyber Safe Survey. I would like to call your attention on the one that I encircled here. For parents who have children who are 13 to 16 years old, very few of them go to parents for help if they have problem online. And then no one taught them about risks online, no? So we cannot escape anymore. Technology is with us. We cannot say no to technology because even our children are educated through their schools online. Ken Baldo, who is here on this Zoom call, is writing a thesis on online safety. So once her thesis is done, I will ask her to make her thesis available for those who would want more information on safety for our children online. Okay, so Dr. Evelyn and the rest of the speakers have already mentioned this, the effects of too much and uncontrolled exposure to electronic gadgets. Okay. So these are some suggestions from experts on how to help our children. It's very interesting that Steve Jobs did not allow his children to use the iPad when they were 12 years old below. Okay? But If you go to malls these days, even, infants are already exposed to gadgets. Okay, so how do we help kids? Number one, set a time limit. Okay? Set a time limit. And as parents, we are the person responsible for that. Homework takes priority. Number three, open door policy. Okay? Especially with teenagers. And if your child is already, according to my son, addicted, so these are the ways that we can follow. We have to be precise and authoritative, okay, so that our children will listen and respect us, especially in the Asian context. Clear guidelines. If your child is really, really addicted, then I think you have to know when to see a professional so that you will be helped. Okay. So do not reward good grades in school with an increase in allowable gaming time and what you do instead. Okay. So helping our children, Philippians 4:8, the Bible says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. And Deuteronomy 6, we have to teach God's commands to our children so that our children and the children after them may fear the Lord, even after the pandemic. And then this is our mandate. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So our prayer is, may God help us all. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Nehemiah.
Thank you, Dr. Natz, for presenting the topic, cognitive psychological, proper ways to raise up children in this advanced technological world. Now it is a time for Q&A. If you have any questions, you may ask questions, or you can put it in the chat box. The resource speakers are available. They will address your questions. Yes, you may raise your hand. Yes, Philanthia Sigo raised hand.
I'm a missionary here in Papua New Guinea. Although the subject is not so much in here, but my concern is about the Kernel province, not so much. But I'm just asking, what you are giving to us, it will be a future help in preparation, because we don't know. We have already COVID in the capital city, but we don't know in here. And some of our schools already starting to have an online and even stopping going to school. My concern is about the children. I really appreciate that you include me on this forum about the materials. Can we have that? Can we download it, or it church members and some other concerned teachers here in the mission field, especially here in Papua New Guinea? Please. Thank you.
Dr. Natz, would you follow up that question? Would you answer it?
I'm not sure if I get the question, but all the materials will be given to all of the participants. It will be in PDF form, and this webinar is also recorded, so you can watch it again if you need to.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions from the participants?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Nehemiah. I have a question too.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. May I know your name?
Ferdinand Tobias. Sorry for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
brother.
I have a question for everyone.
Okay.
Especially to our panels. Since the COVID, affects everything. And here in the US, by the way, I'm working with Child Evangelism Fellowship. I'm the local director here in North County of San Diego. And instead of meeting in person to the school, and one of our Good News Club, we're having a Good News Club in the school. It's an after-school program, so we just we taught there like 45 minutes long, like Bible lesson, memory verse, review game, counseling. So one of our concerns here, because most of the kids are already online studies, they're studying online. So one of the concerns of the parents, they asked, we don't want the children to join the Good News Club because our kids are already spending time longer in the screen during their school time. So how could we encourage the children? Because I know one of the nurture of the kids is the spiritual thing, and our Good News Club is more focused on that, teaching the Bible lesson, everything, and applying to their lives. So how can you address that concern? Thank you.
Yes, resource speakers. Yes, go ahead.
What actually, we cannot say any absolute answer because the pandemic is first time for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But what I can share here is that what I'm doing in my church is that we can provide the material to the parents, and then parents can facilitate that material for their children also. And then we can reach the parents to encourage their children to join your Bible study. I forgot the names, but
Good News Club. It's like a Sunday school. It's like bringing the Sunday school inside the school, elementary school.
Ah, okay. Can you explain again what is the?
Yeah, when we say Good News Club, it's like bringing the church inside the elementary school, because we have permit with that. And part of my ministry is coordinating with parents. Once we already allowed by the school, so our goal is to invite the kids to join in our Good News Club via Zoom, because we cannot meet in person. So since the parents is aware that their kids are already spending time on screen doing their homework studies, and then here the Good News Club will run for 30 to 45 minutes. Sometimes most of them said, no, I don't want my kids to join because they need time, and but part of the spiritual nurture of children is spiritual. That's, they can get encouragement from the Word of God, and of course spending time with their teachers as well. So my question to you is, how can we encourage the kids, the parents, that they will allowing their kids to join the Good News Club, the church club, we call it the church club, the Sunday school club, so that they can also receive a balance, nurture.
Yes. Have you ever shared your lessons in advance with the parents? That while you...
Yeah, we send the quiet time.
Last time during Holy Week of the April at the time, it is still a quarantine period, right? Mm-hmm. So at the time, what we do is that we cannot gather in the church. So we send the summary of the Bible and some material to the parents. So parents read the Bible at their home with their children, and they take a picture and share it in our group chat. So I know you are experts about how to preach or how to reach the children, but right now the children need the guidance of the parents, how to use about the internet, and that's why we need to approach the parents also to include them in your Bible study, so that they can see what you are doing, and then so that they can feel that it is safe and it is helpful for my child faith. Mm-hmm. Then I trust that they will be your helpers to share your words. So I really encourage you to include the parents. So rather than just the children to be in your group in the Zoom, I also encourage you include the parents also, or you can share your materials and lesson plans with the parents. So how about have the orientation with the parents? Because, and then to advocate, though they are busy to do the online class or other things, but we have to do important things for their spirituality. So that's what I'm thinking, include parents in your ministry rather than isolate the children.
Yeah,
I
think you answered my question. Thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, there is a question raised here. Juan Lal Hun Traite. He says that the teachings were much more focused on home-based parents addressing children. Now, due to this pandemic, schools and churches are closed down. How do we reach out the children outside of our family? What are your suggestions? Anybody wants to go on this question? The panel members?
Well, I can try and address this, and then ask for the other panel members to speak to it as well. Now, from a review of the literature and from hearing what some organizations are doing, especially those who work with the most vulnerable, there are two common strategies that I've heard about or read about. One involves connecting with community members who actually live very close to where the children are, and then using what technology that they have, mobile phones or even computers in some contexts, to then organize discussions and create space to address education aspects with the children. Now, this is one way I've seen, using local community volunteers or parents who mobilize a few children. The other way that I've seen is, in some contexts, especially urban contexts, a lot of the children or their parents have mobile phones. So trying to connect through that and reach, through those phones, using WhatsApp or other means of following up on the children, seeing how they're doing. Of course, often Zoom calls type, solutions may not be possible, but, at least following up, keeping in touch to see how the children are doing, I think helps. And this is what I've observed. Any of my other resource panelists can add to this as well.
I agree with what Bradley shared. There's a couple here, like one community here in Davao City was really locked down. They belong to the Bajau tribes. And so what this couple did, since people cannot go in and out, their community was locked down for several months. And so what this couple did, because of their ministry to this group of people, they mobilized people, friends, to contribute for the food, to provide food for this community, since the government was quite slow in terms of meeting the needs of the people. So it's really mobilizing people in the community, Christians together, to help reach these people who are in lockdown, especially in remote areas. First is providing that, and then also second, what they did was they provided USB for some of these people who are believers already, so that they can still continue Bible studies within their community. Another thing that this couple is doing is raising funds to provide internet as well as the gadgets for the children in this community to continue with their education, because they don't have the means. So, that's what the church could do: mobilize people, raise funds so that the education of these people, unreached people group, could continue.
Just a very brief addition to that from what has been shared, apart from ideas by Evelyn and Bradley. I know one of the things that happened in Kenya with the lockdown, and so what people are doing to ensure children access ministry, like for people who live in apartments, so they would have balcony fellowship. And so there's a team that comes and outside, and then all the children come to the balconies, and you do the singing and the worship and the reading of the word, and then they go back to their houses. So in that way, children were still accessed and had fellowship in that time. For education, what has happened with our government in Kenya, they have begun what they are calling a peace education. And in communities, if you are a teacher, you are expected to mobilize children within your area, and then with your compound, social distance, and just ensure for children, especially who don't have gadgets and can access that. So they are learning, at least to keep them busy and to ensure that they are connected and not engaging in violence. So peace education has been one of the forums. And then lastly, through the internet, like I know what my church is doing, and for children, every Sunday, we connect through Zoom. So we talk to the parents and then do a Zoom meeting. So we have a 1 hour fellowship for the children, and then for the teenagers, they have a 1 hour fellowship every Friday. So we can still use the internet connectivity, or with social distancing and accessing balcony fellowship or peace education are also practical ways to reach out to children during this COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseline, Dr. Roseline. And we have another question from April. She says that she asked me that please ask the panel, do we have recommended educational apps that the children can use, Android or Mac? Do we have any educational apps for children? Hello.
Perhaps there are people in this call who are using apps, and they can share also.
Mm-hmm.
For my children, I use sorry to say, but I use YouTube. On, we have a favorite YouTube channel. It's the Beginner's Bible. So every night I would use that. Not every night, almost every night I would use that as one way of telling stories to my children.
Thank you, Dr. Natz. And there is another question from Julius. How COVID increased child abuse?
I can comment on that. I know Bradley also had mentioned some things I'll say, and then he can go. It is indeed true, reports and data that has been shared. I know we've been working on 2 projects and are trying to find the challenge. So one of the things that happened in Kenya, and even the president had to commission a search into increased violence, because what happened with lockdown, there was increased levels of domestic violence, and with the domestic violence, that was both partner violence, but also violence against children. In one of the studies that I was doing with our child helpline here in Kenya, we found out that actually abuse had increased, and especially whereas the child line was recording more of neglect. Cases of violence against children, and especially sexual and physical violence, have gone on the rise. And when this has been checked out, part of the contributing factors was the fact that many parents lost their jobs, especially the casual workers or laborers lost their jobs. And so then the lockdown, especially Nairobi, the capital city, and one of the, again, cities, Mombasa, were locked down and people were indoors. So the stress levels was assessed to be higher, and therefore parents, violence against themselves and then to the children. Yesterday we were submitting another paper, and again we're looking at domestic violence, and it was also very clear that within families there are high cases of domestic violence. I'll confidently say it has contributed to an increase in domestic violence. Bradley, you can go. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Roseline. I think you addressed it well, Roseline. Clearly, there are several reports to say that violence against children has increased in many countries. And of course, the lockdowns and, people losing jobs, the fact that they're locked into a small space for, the whole time, all that has added to this increase in violence. And children who are already in homes where, violence was happening, now have no space to go. At least when they go to school, there was some respite, or they could, go to somebody else's house or whatever. But now they're at home all the time with, perhaps a violent, parent or other individuals in the home. And so there's also the other issue is the lack of access to protection services. And because of that, there clearly increased reports of violence. And one study that World Vision did clearly showed that there was a 40% or so increase, reported increase in violence cases, and an increase in calls made to helplines as well. So yeah, that's something that is clear from several studies done recently.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. And we have another question from one participant raised hand, Dr. Nitin Gode. He raised his hand. I would like to ask Dr. Nitin to ask question.
Thank you, sir. I'm thankful to all the expert panel. Although they have covered all the aspects, socio, religious, socio, education, and all, but I want in this age group, that the children's age group, I think this is the right time to teach them about the economy, how to save the money, or how we can exercise those things. And this is the best time so that they may interact with their father, the parents, and parents also may teach them. So this is the very bad situation especially in India. We find that so many people, they have lost their jobs, and the parents are facing some problems. That's why there are other problems are arising. So violence, so especially as now we are talking about. So I request in the next session or sometime later that any of us or the expertise, they may add to the socio-economical aspects towards the children in the quarantines. Thank you very much. Thank you all for this.
Thank you, Dr. Nitin. Any other questions do we have? Do we have any more questions? We are running out of time, and maybe I can give you the final question. If anybody has, you may raise hand or you may ask the final one.
Dr. Nehemiah?
Yes.
I think Dr. Nitin was asking the panel if we have suggestions on how to, engage children or meet the socio-economic. What's that, Dr. Nitin? Socio-economic.
Socio-economics towards children. How do we? It is Dr. Nitin.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Nitin.
Okay. So yes. This is the time I think that parents can teach them how we can save the money, how we can raise the money, and what are the different things that actually so that in the future, in the future days, the children will be benefited. As we are educating them, what is the thing that is actually routine things, that is what they are taught in the schools. But this is also the practical aspects, so that they may help their parents also, and parents also will learn something from them also, and children also may learn from the parents also.
Thank you, Dr. Nitin. Anybody has any comment on this comment of Dr. Nitin? Anybody has any insight?
Yeah, I have a friend who has written books regarding entrepreneur, and they have put up a school, Christian school, wherein the children it's incorporated into their curriculum, the Bible, as well as teaching children to be, to be entrepreneurs themselves. They're included, it's included in their curriculum, and they're doing a great job at it. So maybe I can just share, the name here, and then you can contact them.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Nehemiah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Evelyn. And yes, we are running out of time. And yeah, just wanted to tell you, wow, I wish we had more time to engage with the resource speakers. What a collaborative effort to tackle and unpack the topic one by one. One of the uniqueness of the resource speakers, they are all Christian educators and social science researchers. Thanks to the research speakers for presenting the topic so beautiful and meaningful with wonderful illustrations. Dear resource speakers, you have not only enriched us by sharing the knowledge, but also helped us to see the practical implications for ways to nurture our children holistically during this pandemic season. We appreciate all your efforts and hard work for making this webinar so alive with your presentations. Indeed, we are immensely blessed by your presentations. This is a time to acknowledge and appreciate our resource speakers by giving them the virtual certificates. I would love to share my screen with the audience as well as the resource speakers. Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary Certificate of Appreciation is presented to Dr. Nativity Petallar for being one of the co-speakers in Practical Divinity webinar series with the topic Holistic Nurture of Children During Quarantine, given this 26th day of September 2020. The next certificate of appreciation is presented to Mr. Bradley Thompson for being one of the co-presenters in Practical Divinity webinar series, Holistic Nurture of Children During Quarantine with the topic COVID-19 and its effects on our children, given this 26th day of September 2020. Next, certificate of appreciation to Dr. Evelyn Pajaron for being one of the co-presenters in Practical Divinity webinar series, addressing the topic on physical nurture of children during the quarantine. We thank you. And next certificate of appreciation is presented to Dr. Roseline Olumbe for being one of the co-presenters in Practical Divinity webinar series, addressing the topic on socio-emotional nurture of children during the quarantine, given this 26th day of September 2020. Last but not the least, a certificate of appreciation is presented to Asen, I call her Ate Asen, for being one of the co-presenters in Practical Divinity webinar series, addressing the topic on spiritual nurture of children during the quarantine, given this 26th day of September 2020. Once again, on behalf of APNTS, once again, on behalf of APNTS and participants, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the resource speakers for leading this webinar so wonderful and meaningful. We thank you all. So now, before we wrap up this webinar, I have a few announcements to make about the upcoming webinar. We will be hosting the next webinar on Saturday, 17th October from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in Manila Standard Time. The next webinar speaker is Dr. Fletcher Tink. He is a program director of PhD Transformational Development at Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary, Manila, the Philippines. Forgot to share my screen. He's a prolific writer and well-known speaker in the areas of theology of work and social transformation from Wesleyan tradition. He will be discussing the topic called Theology of Work for the next webinar. Please save the date. That is on 17th October from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in Manila Standard Time. It is a free webinar, free registration, and there are a lot of people asked me and mailed me how much it costs. We are making it as free and available for practitioners and pastors and Christian ministers and Christian educators and NGOs and all people who engage in Christian ministries. We would like to invite, as I just said, practitioners, Christian education, and people who engage in Christian ministry. This webinar is going to be very exciting. For participants, we would like to inform you that Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary is a graduate school of theology. It is an international learning community where students come from different parts of the world to pursue various degree programs. APNTS offers both master's and PhD degree programs. We have different branches within the stream of master's degree programs. We have MD, Master of Divinity, Master of Science in Theology, Master of Arts in Religious Education, Master of Arts in Intercultural Studies, Master of Arts in Christian Communication, Master of Ministry, and Master of Religious Studies. And also we have 3 PhD programs, PhD in Holistic Child Development, and PhD in Transformational Development, PhD in Transformational Learning. So these 3 PhD programs that we are offering at APNTS, and also we are offering Doctor of Ministry in Transformational Ministry. And also we are offering a PG as a postgraduate certificate in leadership. That is the postgraduate certificate in leadership. This is a new program that we added this year. The enrollment is going on for the 2nd semester. If ever you are interested in any one of these programs, you may please contact to the registrar, and the link is already given here below and shown in the presentation, and you can contact these numbers. We will give you pertinent information. Once again, thank you for joining this webinar. We appreciate your participation. Thanks and God bless. And we would like to again give thanks to our resource speakers who made this webinar so beautiful and so meaningful. We thank you so much. And also the team who are behind the scenes and in the scenes and presenting all this forum in a meaningful way. We thank you for all your hard work and efforts. And nevertheless, we want to also give thanks to the participants who listen the insights and who interacted with the speakers and resource panel members. We thank you for your participation, and we are looking forward to see you again on 17th October 2020 from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in Manila Standard Time. Thank you so much. Have a good time. If you have any other things that if you want to catch up, and you can catch it up, as well as we are going to send the PDF files here on Zoom, then you can avail it and you can download right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Ninang Natz.
I think we can have our group photo.
Sure.
Can you open your screens or your cameras so we can...
Thank you very much. We will be having a group picture. Would you please be on the screen? And I want you to show your face with a smiley face so that we can take picture.
Okay, for first page, smile. One more. Okay, for next one, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile.
We don't know we are still included in the phase 1.
Yeah. Okay, next one, please smile.
Hi, Roseline. We miss you. I miss you.
All right. And for last page, smile.
Nice to see you,
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, classmates.
Okay, please hold on. We will be sending the PDF files so that you can avail it. Please hold on. We will be sending the PDF files.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thanks, Ferdinand. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Miss Doris. I miss you.
Hey, Ferdinand.
Yeah. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. So you're sending the what? The application, right? For the kids.
I heard a lot of noise.
Have you sent the application?
Chloe Madison, where are you? Holistic child. This is holistic child. Don't show your nakedness. Hi, Roseline. This is my child, my daughter.
Oh.
My Filipina, my daughter.
Wow, that's great. She's
Yeah,
grown.
see, you see your Ninang Natz. there.
Yeah.
He has black hair.
Safe harbor. Good night, everyone. Good night. Good night, everyone. We're going to sleep now. Thank you, Johnny. Not too loud.
Thank you all. We already have posted the PDF files in the chat box. You can download. Where sound is coming, I don't know where it is coming. Hi, Dr. Roseline. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Welcome. Thank you. Hi, Dr. Nehemiah. Great for coordinating us. We appreciate.
Thank you so much. Hi, Bradley and Anya. Good to see you. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Nehemiah. Thanks for all the support. And yeah,
Hi,
thanks
Dr.
for
Evelyn. Hi, Dr.
organizing
Evelyn.
this.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless everyone.
And where is Natz?
I'm here.
Natz, thank you so much for the presentation. We are thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you for organizing this whole webinar and contacting the resource speakers. So beautiful. And by the way, where is Atayesan? Atayesan, Kamsabida for presenting the topic. Thank you so much. I hope all of them already availed these PDF files.
Nehemiah, you can turn off the recording.
Yep. Where is that? I have to find out this one.